Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Double Entertainment. Ever since the COVID restrictions have lifted and movie theaters reopened, I've been seeing newer films fall less frequently and instead have seen a lot of re-releases. And honestly, I don't know whether my tastes have changed, but I feel as though the quality in cinema, especially post-COVID, has definitely taken a nosedive. However, there were films that I still very much enjoyed, and I'd like to talk about them. So for today, here are my personal favorite films that were released post-COVID. At number 7, Robert Eggers' The Northman. I have to come clean. I'm not the biggest fan of Robert Eggers. Yes, I do consider him a very unique director for both style and storytelling, but I feel as though he gets way too caught up in symbolism and historical accuracy to the point it takes away from the film. The biggest example of this being The Lighthouse. That being said, I consider The Northman to be his magnum opus. As I just said, especially with The Lighthouse, I feel as though Eggers wasn't really allowing the film to go in its natural direction, but with The Northman, it felt as though he let it go on its intended direction. Starring Alexander Skarsgård as Amlet, The Northman is based on the ancient Nordic myth of Amlet, a young boy whose father is murdered by his uncle, who then kidnaps his mother, played by Nicole Kidman. Now captured and sold into slavery, he seeks his revenge against his uncle as well as his captors. Also starring Anya Taylor-Joy and featuring everybody's favorite Willem Dafoe, The Northman is an adrenaline and gore-fueled epic that will send everybody rushing to the gym. The story is captivating, the acting is stellar, and the visuals are stunning. Funny story, my buddy actually asked me if I wanted to go see it, and I don't know what he was expecting, but he wasn't fully prepared for what he saw. Regardless, he started working out afterwards, so good for him. At number 6, The French Dispatch. Directed by a personal favorite director of mine, Wes Anderson, The French Dispatch is an all-star cast featuring the usual suspects: Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, Owen Wilson, Adrien Brody, and Edward Norton. The French Dispatch is an American newspaper that highlights stories surrounding a particular French town. Featuring the usual and quirky Wes Anderson tropes, these stories include an art critic who fans the creativity of a particularly violent convict, the kidnapping of a police commissioner's son, and a choice between Timothée Chalamet and Frances McDormand as she revisions the young political activist's manifesto. I saw this around the same time I saw Last Night in Soho, and this was another one I saw twice in theaters. I'm a massive fan of Wes Anderson, not just for his quirky style and sense of humor, but especially for his talents as a storyteller, and whenever you watch his movies, you can always tell that the cast is having a blast making the film, which is arguably the most important aspect to ensuring a successful production. At number 5, Last Night in Soho. Directed by the amazingly talented Edgar Wright, Last Night in Soho stars Thomasin McKenzie as Eloise, an aspiring fashion designer who gets accepted into the London College of Fashion. After moving into a new house, she's transported into 1960s London, and her Virgil is a young and aspiring singer named Sandy, played by Anya Taylor-Joy. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not too familiar with the works of Edgar Wright, but after my buddy showed me the trailer to this, I was overwhelmed with Dario Argento and Giallo vibes and was super psyched. Funnily enough, I ended up seeing this by myself and saw it twice. The acting was amazing, the cinematography was breathtaking, and of course, the music was the highlight. I was super stoked when Susie and the Banshees started blasting at the party. I love me some Siouxsie and the Banshees. I also found it an ideal antithesis to Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which glamorized 1960s Hollywood, especially the Playboy Mansion, whereas Last Night in Soho removes the rose-tinted glasses and shows the real horrors at the time, which unfortunately still go on to this day. On a more personal note, I found myself laughing my ass off watching Eloise trying to fit in because I couldn't help but remember my days sleeping at a dank and dingy hostel in Israel while studying at the yeshiva. Long story short, alcohol is a great way to strengthen camaraderie. At number 4, Nope. Okay, y'all know what I'm gonna say, but I love director Jordan Peele. I remember laughing my ass off binge watching Key and Peele while in high school, and being completely caught off guard after seeing Get Out and Us in theaters. Nope came out of left field and is definitely a bit different from his two previous films, but not at all in a bad way. Nope is an R-rated love letter to the early films of Steven Spielberg, most notably Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. However, whereas the aliens in Spielberg's Close Encounters and E.T. seem to be friendly, these aliens are absolute Nazis. Whatever is coming to visit planet Earth is not a force to be reckoned with. I grew up watching a ton of alien invasion movies from the 50s and 70s, and never have I ever been more terrified by extraterrestrial life. OJ and Emerald Haywood are a brother and sister who help run their father's horse ranch, and after a series of weird events, they begin to suspect something otherworldly is at work. This definitely feels like a more adult 70s Spielberg film with a darker edge. Even though it leans more towards sci-fi adventure with hints of western, it's Jordan Peele, so it's still definitely a horror film with some shockingly terrifying scenes. Also, never have I ever been more terrified of a damn monkey. Seriously, don't fuck with apes. At number 3, Nightmare Alley. I am a huge fan of Guillermo del Toro and fondly remember dragging my family to go see Crimson Peak when it first came out. Nightmare Alley, however, is a bit different from del Toro's other works. Whereas he tends to make films about the supernatural, this is strongly grounded in reality. Based on the novel by William Gresham, the film's main character is Stanton Carlyle, a drifter who finds himself working at a carnival after committing an atrocious crime. At the carnival, he comes across a sideshow exhibit of a geek, a sort of Neanderthal who bites heads off of live chickens, all shown in intense and grisly detail. After befriending a fortune teller and her husband, Stan decides to run off with the apple of his eye, Molly, in hopes of striking it big, which they do. Things take a turn for the worse when Stan is commissioned by an incredibly wealthy tyrant to bring his wife back from the dead. Without giving much more away, Nightmare Alley is an amazing film from the master of macabre and is by far his bleakest film, giving Requiem for a Dream a run for its money. Also, I wasn't exaggerating. If you're planning on watching this, you will see a chicken get its head bitten off. At number 2, Possessor. Directed by Brendan Cronenberg, David Cronenberg's son, Possessor is a surreal and unnerving modern masterpiece. Tasia Voss is a top assassin for a crooked corporation who hires assassins to enter the minds and bodies of total strangers via surgical brain implants. Once the assassin takes over the host's body, they track down the target and assassinate them, usually in incredibly gruesome ways. Tasia's next victim host is Colin, a coke dealer whose girlfriend's father is an incredibly wealthy and crooked manager of some corporation, which, honestly, I have no fucking clue does. Pretty much all they do is watch people fuck and describe what furniture they have. However, something goes haywire with the new host, allowing him to take over Tasia. Possessor is the only film I saw from the young director, and Brendan not only seems to emulate his dad's style, but also really holds himself up as a great director on his own. Possessor is everything I look for in modern cinema. It's incredibly stylish, avant-garde, violent, shocking, disturbing, sexual, and boundary-pushing. For today's honorable mention, I'd like to shine a spotlight on Mad God. I'm gonna let you know right off the bat, while I wouldn't go so far as to call Phil Tippett's Mad God a bad movie, I wouldn't necessarily call it a great movie either. I just really wanted to shine a spotlight on it and share my opinion. I first watched Mad God on Shudder and then went with a friend to go see it at the IFC Center in New York, and I have no idea what I was thinking when I first watched it or if I was just drunk. Yeah, I was probably drunk at the time. But I was sober when I saw it a second time at the IFC Center and was left scratching my head. While Mad God is a unique film with cosmic and grotesque visuals from start to finish, the whole film felt grotesque and nihilistic for the sake of grotesquerie and nihilism, with very little else to offer. But that's just my opinion, and it is a pretty unique film, so I can recommend you watch it for that, and as always, I would love to hear your opinions on that as well as every other movie on this list. I can guarantee you that most of you, if not all of you, are going to be absolutely infuriated with my number one pick, but here it is. A24's Man. Okay, I'm just bullshitting you. It's Crimes of the Future. I have been a massive Cronenberg fan since I was 16 and even did a top 10 of my favorite films directed by him. Ever since Existence, Cronenberg seemed to have veered away from the sci-fi genre and moved almost entirely to drama. However, earlier this year, a trailer dropped for his return to the genre he owned. Not only was this a return to his roots, but he seemed to have created something way ahead of our times, something truly grotesque, disturbing, and avant-garde. Now, I first saw Crimes of the Future in the movie theaters, and honestly had mixed feelings about it. Yes, it was through and through a David Cronenberg film, but personally, I felt overwhelmed and creeped out by the sexualization of fucking surgery. Between Léa Seydoux and Viggo Mortensen making love while scalpels are cutting into them, and fashion models cutting open their fucking faces and feet, it seemed to be a bit much for me at the time. However, the set designs and cinematography did stick with me, and about a week later, I decided to man up, rented it, and fell head over heels in love with it, watching it 3 times in 2 days. Many of you know I rarely watch newer films and am not a fan of the direction modern cinema has gone, But Crimes of the Future is, in my opinion, a modern day masterpiece, truly disturbing and surreal and ultra modern, almost futuristic, and like any David Cronenberg film, cryptic and insightful. Thank you all for watching this, and let me know in the comment section down below if you've seen any of these films and what you think, or if there are any other post-COVID films that you would like to recommend. And in my last video, I mentioned that yes, I have been gone for a while, and the reason is I am actually working on a script for a feature film, and I'm working with a friend of mine to hopefully pitch it around and get it financed. So thank you very much, and see you all in the next video.